YouTubers out there, this is the Dark Knight of Steel, and a couple of hours ago I just got done watching The Dark Knight Rises, and I can say that is probably one of the best trilogies I've ever seen in film. Now, it's up there right next to Lord of the Rings and the original Star Wars trilogy, but I find it more like the original Star Wars trilogy. There's just some parts I thought that could have been better about the film, but it was still great. But it's kind of complicated. I would probably compare it to Return of the Jedi in Star Wars. Meaning you have like an original one, which Batman Begins, and then there's like the sequel, Empire Strikes Back, that's darker, it'd be like Dark Knight, and it's just like really great. Probably the best. But then it's a true trilogy where the third comes full circle with the first one. And you have exposition and a backstory that goes with it. They thought something was true and it wasn't. And that would probably be like Return of the Jedi. Now some may say it's not as strong as a Dark Knight, and if you like Batman Begins you may like this one more. If you just came into a Dark Knight you might not like it as much and compared to the Joker, but I actually thought it was good. It was a bit shaky at first. My only complaint about the film is that it moved too fast. I thought it could have been just a little bit longer, but maybe that's just a Batman fan of me. It's just that it was so good, it felt like it went by too fast. But I would probably compare it to Return of the Jedi, definitely. In the fact that some fans might not like it, but then the action part of it's there in the conclusion of the trilogy, and it does its job in having a satisfying conclusion. It does not end in a whimper or disappoint, I would say. It's not like Spider-Man 3 either, so like the backstory stuff, it really has a purpose in this, and it's not just made up BS just to add extra drama or blockbuster. Like Spider-Man 3, for instance, the whole backstory exposition with Uncle Ben, and then like Sandman actually killing, like Uncle Ben, instead of the guy in the first one being the killer. It just kind of ruins the whole trilogy. This one adds on it. It doesn't blow up anything, it has a satisfying conclusion, and the themes that are built from the first two movies play a vital role in this last one. Before watching this review, it has spoilers, so beware. If you haven't seen the movie, do not watch this review at all unless you want your experience ruined, okay? I'm so excited about this that it's hard not to talk about any spoilers. I mean, I could, but the film critic in me, film director in me wants to go into detail what I liked. Now, Bane, he was one menacing SOB. I think he was the most menacing Batman villain out of all. Because, I mean, you have the Joker, and he's like a psychopath. A dog chasing cars, so to speak. You had Two-Face, and then the other movies, of course, is Burton Schumacher. You had the other villains, Joker again, Riddler, and all of them. But even though some of them were evil, you still found something you liked about him. Like the Joker, for instance, he was psychotic and stuff, but he had a certain ability, a magic trick, and then in the interrogation he brought up some good points that you agreed with. But Bane here, he is just evil. This is the first Batman movie where you actually hate the villain, but in a good way. I mean, he is just really, really, really menacing in this, and Tom Hardy did a great job, I thought. It kind of had with the mask and voice, kind of brought a James Bond villain aspect to it, like the old James Bonds with the Connery and Roger Moore. He had that super villain type of enemy. And I wasn't sure how they're going to do it, being 8 years after Dark Knight, but they managed to pull it off pretty well. Anne Hathaway did a great job as Catwoman. Did a really, really great job. Probably more like Catwoman in the comics and stuff, in the cartoon, more than I've seen in the other one, because the other one, Michelle Pfeiffer did a great job, I thought. She was a little bit more psychotic and stuff, and this one's more of the cat burglar, Selena Kyle. Now, I like how they had Daggett in there as well, kind of a throwback to the animated series and comics there. If you've seen the Fate of Clay episode and the creation of Clayface, you know who he is. Or the episode in the animated series where they blow up a portion of Gotham or whatever, and the older side of Gotham, by where Bruce Wayne's parents died, and he's trying to get money and gets away. So there's some of that in there. And I like how it was kind of paid a homage, and it was a fitting conclusion. If you watch all three in a row, it would be perfect. And what I like about these films, and many people might like Dark Knight better than this one, or might not like this one as much as the first, or might like this one the best, is the fact that each of them have something to like about. And if somebody says, if it's not good or whatever, you can see why. I mean, each of them is different and can stand on their own. You can see why somebody would like Dark Knight over Dark Knight Rises, or even like Dark Knight Rises over Dark Knight, or Batman Begins, and vice versa and all that. You can see why people would like that. And I think that's the beauty of this trilogy, is that they all are an equal level, if not better than each other. So in the first one you have Batman Begins and the theme of fear, and then Dark Knight with anarchy and chaos, and then this dwelling on the theme of pain and overcoming it, and I guess the theme of hope. And that's really apparent here. And it's kind of showing like Commissioner Gordon, it took a toll on him or whatever with Harvey Dent's death, and you know, his wife and kids, they left, and he's there, and this lie is kind of eating him up inside. You can see in this film there's almost like a Shakespearean element added to him. And then John Blake, he's very optimistic, so to speak, and kind of has a glimmer of hope, almost like what Jim Gordon was in Batman Begins. You know, holding on to something and then believing that things can get better. But the action on this is just intense. Like the football sequence, for instance, and then it was just beautiful cinematography. It was an epic grand scale. Christopher Nolan was not lying when he said he wanted to bring back the grand look of the silent film era. It really had that grand epic scale look. And even though it did I felt it kind of rushed things a bit, it did its job in concluding, and I'm glad it ended with a bang. It did its job. It did what it was supposed to do, and it brought it full circle. And I don't know. It's beyond words right now. It was a great film. I say it's probably the best film of the summer. And that's another thing. I liked Avengers a lot. You shouldn't compare them. I hate why people compare films. I wouldn't even say, like Dark Knight, look, it's a comic book film, but I think that's one of the greatest films in history, period. But in here, even compared to some of the other Batman films, you get a real sense of peril and danger. Like, they might not get through it. There's a real great intensity where they're not gonna succeed. They're gonna fail. He might not beat the villain. And through that, it just makes the action scenes much more better. And I like it too that they computerized what they had to computerize and filmed real what they filmed real. And it made it seem much more grounded and very authentic. It didn't feel like, you know, a video game where there's just like a whole bunch of computerized buildings and computerized aliens and stuff and transforming robots. Like, it's very real. Like with the Bat, they had a crane and then just raced it and then had it. You could tell because the flight sequences were just amazing on that. Really, really amazing. And the action scenes, the one improvement compared to the other two Batmans and even the other ones, the Schumacher-Burton, but especially the first two Nolan ones, was the fight scenes. Now the fight scenes of the other ones were good too, but they looked just a bit choreographed, kind of like a little slow, a bit choreographed. Like for instance, the party scene in Dark Knight, where Joker's like, "A little fight in you, I like that," and it's just like, "Then you're gonna love me," and then like that, and then he like does his little punch thing like that. I mean, it looked cool. It was cool. Just a little choreographed, but this one, the fighting is very, very fast-paced and almost feels real. Like they're really hitting each other, and especially in that last fight scene on the steps there in the snow between Bane and Batman was the most intense part of the movie. I thought that was like the most intense fight I've ever seen. But that goes into addition that this is one villain, and here's what I like about him compared to the other villains. Is the fact that he can challenge Batman both mentally and physically. I don't think Batman's ever met anybody he couldn't really defeat. Like physically, like nobody physically that could basically destroy him. And he does break the Bat, spoiler warning again, on one part. And I'm surprised to see that in this film. That really, really surprised me, where he broke Batman's back. That was just like, oh. There's so many little moments like that that really kind of got the fanboy in me just, wow. That I thought would never be in there, and then just Nolan, he did such a great job, and I think there's just some parts where they're just like, you know what, screw it, it's the last one, let's just go all out, you know? So you had the little pit reference there, Lazarus Pit, you had Liam Neeson's flashback thing, kind of ghost thing, imagining thing with Bruce. Each of the characters that are in the trilogy made appearances. You had Ra's al Ghul, yes, Scarecrow in the court scene. And the Man of Steel trailer looked great too. The acting in this really, really was, I think, Oscar material. Especially on Michael Caine, that scene after Christian Bale decides to be Batman again. Alfred says, "You only see one end to your journey," and he basically tells him what happened about Rachel in the letter, and that part just got to me. And you could tell it in the eyes and everything out. Michael Caine's performance in Christian Bale was just like, wow. That sense of emotion in this film kind of gave you the feeling that it is the conclusion. Like they weren't lying in the previews that it's the conclusion to the Dark Knight legend. It is. And you really felt it. And even though I thought it was a bit shaky at first, and everything just felt like rushed a little bit, it all paid off in the end. But I think it's much greater if you watch the first two films and then this. It seems more complete. You can see why they did that. So Batman Begins to be the first act, then the second act, then the third act. Basically, this whole movie is like the climax of the trilogy. It's just really good. And many fans, including myself, predicted this. So if you're still watching, shame on you. Spoiler warning. I put a spoiler warning, so don't blame me for ruining your movie experience. But Miranda Tate as Talia al Ghul. That I figured out before, and that I knew it was going to happen, but it was still kind of surprising when it happened. Just like it's inevitable, but still surprised you. That was a great scene. It was kind of a throwback to the twist in Batman Begins, where Liam Neeson's just like a Ra's al Ghul the Immortal type of thing. And then Bane. Now here, I paid attention to this. I was like, oh, is that a plot hole or not? Because earlier in the film, they say Bane said I was a grown man when I got out, or whatever, that prison. And then when Bruce Wayne's in the prison, he's talking to that other guy. He's just like, oh, a child escaped there. You thought it was Bane. I was like, but didn't you just say he was a man? And it's just like, once they said that, I was like, oh, cool. Because I was just like, maybe I'm just hearing things wrong or missed something, but that beginning sequence was very great too in the action. The whole plane, I mean, wow. Christopher Nolan has a great way of beginning films. I know this is the beginning, and then like with the man falling and Batman Begins, but then with the bank robbery and then this, wow. Just wow. The only thing you didn't see as much as Batman gliding much, but he really didn't need to when he had the bat. Now, that ending was intense. Reason why is because it was actually in real time. It wasn't like one of those BS Hollywood movies, like scenes that has it like where it's like there's 5 minutes until like the bomb explodes or the city, and it's like an hour worth of the movie, and like with 5 minutes, like no, this is like 5 minutes. So what happens is it actually wasn't 5 minutes. You just felt the intensity and just him trying to get the bomb out of the city and everything. Just like your heart pounding, your heart's just pounding, and I'm still excited about this. I know I may be mumbling and going too fast on this review, but that's how excited I am. And it's weird because I don't feel as excited after when I saw The Dark Knight, but I just feel satisfied right now. Like, it's not like after Batman and Robin ended and before Batman Begins came out, I no longer need like the perfect Batman movies. I don't care if like even if he gets messed up later, like he did in Batman and Robin down the road, if they just mess up the character and everything. I already have my perfect Batman trilogy. So now I can die and be happy. But it's just... it's one of the greatest trilogies, and I like that too because it's the first time on live-action film that you had an actor play Batman more than twice. It'd be 3 times, and the director's directed 3. So you have that, and you pretty much got like the villains and the other ones and kind of like rectified them, brought them back. So there's like the definitive Batman trilogy. You had Ra's al Ghul, Scarecrow, you had Joker, Two-Face, Catwoman, Bane, Talia. You had like the major characters to make the definitive Batman trilogy. And that's another reason why this trilogy worked, I think, is it was made for all the right reasons, and they just had a lot going for it. For example, like Spider-Man 3 had different writers, he had different composer. It just like the years are a little bit off, and it just blew it up too much, the franchise. X-Men, Batman, I guess even Blade, for instance. Superman 3, it just went too campy, but I digress. They had different directors, writers, and everything. There's reasons why, like X-Men, for instance, like Bryan Singer, and then he left, and then we all know how that went. Different directors, even, okay, Batman Returns to Batman Forever. Now, I enjoyed Batman Forever better than I did Batman Returns, but you can see why the franchise kind of went down or just wasn't the same. And even Godfather didn't escape the third movie curse, you know? But I think that's because it was so many years after the first two parts, and look at it this way, the most successful series have most of the cast and crew, everybody returning in the sequels. Look at Scream or Die Hard, John McClane's still there, all four movies. Lethal Weapon series, all of them were there. There's went to four movies, very good. Each of them kind of held their own. You always have that first one that's good or the second one that's like really awesome, that raises a bar. But each of them held their own. And look at Godfather, even 1 to 2, not many of the people made it, but look at 3, only Michael's there. Diane Keaton's character. I'm rambling down, I've just forgot her name, I can't believe that. Kay. Kay's character is his sister. And the old Italian guy from Sicily and the bodyguard guy. That was the other bodyguard guy, not the one that blew up the car in the first Godfather. But yeah, it just was different, didn't have as many people from the first. And I think that's why this succeeded, is because like everybody was there from beginning to end. And even with the flashback to Begins, I mean, you really have to watch Batman Begins. Like, this is... I didn't cry during the movie, I thought I was, but I almost was brought to tears. And the last third movie that was Toy Story 3. And I know it's a kid's film and everything, but really, sense of completion. That's probably another one of my favorite trilogies. And then there's other sequel trilogies, but it was more like it had an awesome first, and then second and third are good, kind of complete, but it's like the second, third sequel, so you have like Matrix, Back to the Future, and Pirates of the Caribbean that had that little second, third, and this, I'd probably compare it most, I like Lord of the Rings as a trilogy, but that's really more one, I mean, each of them are one complete story, but like Lord of the Rings really is like one giant book, just separated into 3 parts. The only other trilogy I would think that I could compare to Dark Knight trilogy, with Batman Begins, Dark Knight Rises, is their original Star Wars trilogy. Before and after the George Lucas changes, like the original ones like Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, that trilogy, no prequel trilogy, is the only one I could compare to this one. And I was very satisfied with the ending. Now, I didn't think it was going to end that way. I actually thought it was going to end with him standing on the tower, because in the past movies, they've actually had the ending shot revealed in the trailer, and I thought it was going to have like a Tim Burton-esque type of ending with the first Batman. It's just like the signal and then like Protector. But I was actually kind of glad. And that was a neat twist too with John Blake, with his real name as Robin. It's just like, oh wow, and then inherited the Batcave. But when Batman, that thing blew up, I was like, oh, did they seriously just kill him? I actually thought that, I really did. Because before going to this, I thought he was either going to have to choose to be Bruce Wayne and not Batman, or kill off Bruce Wayne and he'd live as Batman, you know what I mean? Kind of like the comics thing, the Bruce Wayne fugitive type thing, where he has to choose one life or the other. Basically like the Dark Knight Returns at the end, the graphic novel. And some part of me is glad that he didn't die, because it had a happy ending, and for selfish reasons, I wanted to make a movie where you kill off the hero and have the villain win and everything. But that's just me. I'm getting sidetracked here. I just liked how it had him with Selena Kyle and Alfred there, because he freed himself. And if you look at the trilogy, that's all he ever really wanted. I know that's kind of different from Batman, because he's always driven and stuff. But if you think about it, with all the rose galleries and stuff, he couldn't like free himself from that life. But if you have a cinematic trilogy in one story, it's like Batman, who wants to shake people out of apathy and become a symbol that can be incorruptible and everlasting, something elemental and something terrifying. And he wants to basically give people hope that anybody can be Batman. He goes over that in talking to Joseph Gordon-Levitt in one scene of this. And then Dark Knight, he wanted Harvey Dent to take over and be Gotham's White Knight so he can stop being Batman, wanted a life with Rachel. So throughout this whole trilogy, he wanted a life of his own where he can be free from this. So I was very satisfied, because not only was he the hero that Gotham needed and everything and deserved, he was rectified with the events that happened in Dark Knight, and he got a life of his own. He was free from being Batman. Now, I could have left it open, but I'm glad the way it ended. It wasn't like one of those cheap little trilogy endings like X-Men 3, for instance, where like you think it's the end and then like some cliffhanger thing happens where Magneto like moves a chess piece. I'm glad I didn't have that type of ending. It's just is very different from what I was expecting in my mind. I was very satisfied with it, but it's just very different. My only complaint is that it just went by way too fast. I would have liked a little bit more exposition and then just like an hour worth more. Like, I wouldn't even minded if it went 3 hours to 3.5 hours. I can sit through that. I sat through Lord of the Rings Return of the King, and that was a long movie. Like, I wouldn't have minded. It went by really fast. It was a bit jumbled up, you had to get used to it, I think, with the 8-year gap, but it worked. And it was nice seeing the Bat Cave, and that football scene again was really terrifying, the bombs blowing up. Another weak point is, I mean, it was good. I just thought Matthew Modine's character was going to be like a traitor or something with like the League of Shadows, with him not catching Bane and wanting to get Batman. I mean, it was good, it's just that, I don't know, his character really had no purpose. Even though he played a great part and everything, I liked it. I just wish it could have did something more with the supporting characters. I would have liked a little bit more time in the prison, but that's just me. I'm glad they did it, though. And I'm glad, even when he went back as Batman, he wasn't at 100% when he came back as Batman, but what I liked about it the most is that they didn't pit his character back to square one. Like, he just went to Batman like that. You know, he didn't go to, like, I don't know how to be Batman. It's just, like, go through the whole theme of fear. Like, for instance, in the prison, he didn't have to learn about fear again. He already did that in Batman Begins, where he's just like, I'm not afraid, I'm angry. And get through the anger and then pain, basically. And that was just an epic scene where he was rising up on the well, the pit, and he was going up, and then the bat started coming out and started going circular around like that. It's like, oh, he's Batman again. Another third, which is funny because he got his own statue in that movie too. Another third I'd probably compare it with, that I thought it was like going in before this, seeing the previews, is Rocky 3. You know how Rocky fought Mr. T, and he got like his butt kicked the first time he fought him, and then he was just like down, then training back, and then it was just like an awesome fight at the end of the movie. That's what this was like. It had that feeling, and those fight scenes were deep. I mean, he's just like punching Bane, and then when he breaks his mask, he's like, oh, and then kicks him through the glass doors, and I just love what Christian Bale does. He's just like, tell me where the bomb to the detonator is, then you have my permission to die. And he like says it like in the most like crazy. Now I can't do the Batman voice, my throat hurts because I've been doing it all day and then talking, and now I'm just filming myself talking. I've been just like rambling by myself, talking about how awesome it is, and I just want to know your thoughts out there about the movie. And it's kind of scary too with the whole economy thing and the stock, because I could actually see that type of future happening. That's what makes it kind of like really, really intense, and I think relevant and meaningful. I mean, it's not like the other summer films or even superhero. I wouldn't even compare it to other superhero films. I don't know why. This is just a great film. The other one's just like, okay, there's comic, there's villains, but it's like then that's all it is. Like, this has like a message, a theme, something to say. It has an impact. It makes you feel something. I mean, there's people in the movie theater when I was walking out crying and stuff. I mean, not many other films this summer did that. Not even Spider-Man did that, and that was good. I think the only other thing that did that, and it was just might have been a sad scene, it wasn't as good as this, but Men in Black 3. But this was just, and it did what a trilogy should have done. It was full circle and was complete, and I liked it. I probably compare it most to Return of the Jedi. I know I keep on saying that, but I saw one review out there on YouTube, and this guy said it completed him as a Batman fan, and I think all us Batman fans feel the same way. I mean, it just, I'm satisfied now. I kind of want to see the same thing happen to Superman, what they did with this trilogy. That's what I'm curious about after seeing that Man of Steel trailer. And then Morgan Freeman played a great part, and the action scenes, the stunts. It makes a difference when you do it for real. But I give it a 10 out of 10, and then I would say 5 out of 5, but probably a 6 out of 5. Like, I have complaints with the film, but it's very, very minor complaints because the end result ultimately pays off. And I can see why they fast forward. But for me, it went by faster than Dark Knight. I love Dark Knight. That movie went by fast. I didn't think that was a slow movie. Like, many people were saying it should have ended in the hospital scene. I was like, no. It went fine for me. This one actually went a lot faster, but I think it's because it was filled with action. This was just all-out war. It was just, wow. It was grand. And the soundtrack by Hans Zimmer was really epic. I know there was a bonus track. I think it was one at the end, with Batman and the Bomb, No Stone Unturned. Then there's Gotham's Reckoning, and then The Fire Rises. That was really, really intense. The violence was very intense. I don't mind violence in cinema, but it was very intense. And it's going to be off subject here. I know it's been a lot in the news not a lot of people want to hear it, but that my deepest prayers and condolences to the families in Colorado. That was just a horrible thing that happened. That guy was just, that's just pure evil. That's like terroristic there, man. You could say it's crazy and stuff, but in riot gear and tear gas, that was just organized, pure, planned, straight up evil, man. Stuff like that just pisses me off about the world and everything. And I know they pulled up some screenings from Paris. That's just horrible. Especially in this day and age. And it makes it, I don't know, it's just with Bane and everything, it makes the movie very more realistic. I mean, it makes it more realistic. I can see, like, if there's 30 minutes in the movie and stuff, how that would be scary, even with those scenes at it, and then something like that happening for real, that would terrify me. I can't fathom. But, yeah, Christopher Nolan, I should thank him. He's like a movie god to me. And the best director of our era. Probably the best director of that kind since Kubrick. Kind of runs with Stanley Kubrick, but as a Batman fan, I'm happy and I can just hold my head up high that we have a satisfying film series. And this film, for me, as a film director, kind of inspires me even more, both as a Batman fan and a film fan. Cinephile and Batman fanatic. Ha! Pretty much Batman is pretty much my first love to film. Both of those are one of my favorite things. Put those together, wow, it's just wonderful. But it was just great. And then Talia al Ghul. It's probably one of the worst reviews I've ever seen, because I'm just rambling, but I'm just really, as a fan, it's beyond words. The only thing I would have done differently as a director, though, just me, besides having it after Dark Knight, like right after, and then go 8 years, I like how they did the 8-year thing. I probably would have had Bruce Wayne in that prison already, and then have them explain how he got there, and structure it like Batman Begins did, and then have him go back to Gotham like in Batman Begins, and then the whole movie take place like that. But I like the way they did it. It's a lot better than I would have done it. Mine would have been like boring. It took a little bit longer. This one, the pacing was good. Bit funny at first. Its only complaint is the beginning felt like a little odd. I was just like, Then once you got into it and it got to the story, it was really, really good. And it's weird because Bruce Wayne, I know he's like a hermit and stuff, but it's kind of funny because he's basically like, it's like what Michael Keaton's Bruce Wayne was. He's kind of like a weirdo, kind of repressed guy just waiting. He was almost like that, just in the mansion. Nobody knew, nobody saw him or whatever. He's almost like Michael Keaton for a second, but it's a great film. I'd recommend seeing it. See it twice. I'd probably see it like 7 times. I tell you what, that's one Blu-ray trilogy I'm definitely going to buy and watch straight through. I hope they actually have special features on this, but they're just my thoughts on The Dark Knight Rises. It's The Dark Knight of Steel signing out.